Hello, how the tech are you? This is our weekly tech show on Echoplex Media. We talk about tech news and science news and other stuff. We got some creepy AI news coming up on my end. I got my top story is, and my only story is, developers created AI to generate police sketches. Nothing bad could possibly happen with that. HK is out on an adventure. So, Dave, what do you got?
Hey, I'm Dave, and I'm the producer of this and other shows on Echoplex Media. I have two stories, one about catfishing and another that's very personal to me. It's about Twitter's API.
Fair enough. And I assume catfishing is the online thing, not actually going to fish cats.
Correct.
Catch catfish. Fair enough. Okay, so my one and only story for today. Developers created AI to generate police sketches, and it's called Forensic Sketch AI Artist. So there's no A in the word artist. It's AI-RTIST. Just thought that was funny, kind of dumb. But basically it's using OpenAI's DALL-E 2 to create these sketches. It makes hyper-realistic police sketches. In the article that I link here, they had an example. That I assume was generated. I don't actually know, but I assume that was a sketch that was generated by this new little software tool. The idea is to cut down the time it takes to generate a police sketch, because it usually takes up to 3 hours to create a police sketch. I assume that's a sketch per witness, because they also do composite sketches, which will take all of them together and try and merge them into a composite. That whole police sketch thing is a little sketchy, but we'll get into that. Anyways, it uses you can either use a template or you can do a general description. If you use a template, it's basically going to ask stuff for like gender, skin color, eyebrows, nose. I think that was the image that's up on the screen, or was up on the screen. On the side, it had that sort of stuff. So you just kind of like select, each part of the face and what it should look like, and it sketches that out. Or you can just try and do a general description. It's very similar to how police sketch artists work. The problem is, a lot of critics think that the use of AI may actually worsen racial and gender bias. So Jennifer Lynch, from the Surveillance Litigation Director of the Electronic Frontier Foundation, so the EFF, I was going to summarize what she was saying, but she has a lot of great quotes on this. So the first one is, the problem is that any forensic sketch is already subject to human biases and the frailty of human memory. So, a witness could very easily be biased towards a certain, particularly like ethnic group. And by the time they're ready to do a sketch with a police sketch artist, they may have forgotten what the person looks like. But also, so the second quote, the research has shown that humans remember faces holistically, not feature by feature. A sketch process that relies on individual feature descriptions like this AI program can result in a face that looks strikingly different from the perpetrators. And of course, that's a big problem if you end up with a different face than the person that they're looking for, especially one that looks very realistic with all this AI spiffy stuff going on. And then finally, our final quote is, unfortunately, once the witness sees the composite, that image may replace in their minds their hazy memory of the actual suspect. This is only exacerbated by AI-generated image that looks more real than a hand-drawn sketch. And that's one I've known about for a while. So basically, during the sketching process, whatever the police sketch artist comes up with, if he sketches stuff a little bit differently than what the person actually saw, it could actually replace what the person saw in their mind, and now they have a totally different image of the suspect, and that could be a problem. So what do you think? This is kind of a big intersection here between AI and politics and justice and all that stuff.
Eyewitness testimony is unreliable enough as it is. Now you've got a computer program basically you put in a few parameters and then it suggests to you what the person looks like. And, it's not going to talk, there's just going to be, I feel like it's going to nudge people in certain directions based on, I don't know, like, where are the models of the faces coming from? Like, are they coming from crime databases? Because now maybe the AI, if it's like using it from mugshots or whatever, maybe the AI has some idea of what a criminal looks like. That might not be the best thing in the world, right?
Yeah, I didn't say where how the model was trained, what data was used to train the DALL-E 2, and I don't know if it's a base version or something else. But in the article that I linked to, they mention, like, if you put into DALL-E 2, the one that you can do online, and say, like, show me an image of a CEO, all of them show up. All the images that it creates are all white dudes. And they're like, well, that's, kind of annoying. It means that people have a certain expectation of CEOs. But if the same thing sort of happens, if you're saying, draw me an image of a criminal and they're all brown people, like that's a big problem.
Right. Or maybe if it does show you people who appear to be white, they look a certain way, right? Like they have long hair, or they have tattoos, or just kind of unkempt in some way. You know what I'm saying? There's all kind. I mean, this is fraught with problems. I bet there are problems here that we haven't even imagined yet. But my big one is that the AI doesn't think it knows what a criminal looks like. I mean, that's kind of an inaccurate way to talk about it. But there's definitely a way in which this thing is going to tend to spit out like certain features, even independent of race. And so
I think
go ahead.
The correct way to point it out is the biases of the people who created the software to begin with or trained the model come out in the results. So even if those biases aren't conscious, right?
Right. I just don't know. Because and police sketches are, oftentimes they're just wrong. And that's because people misremember things. And when you're talking to somebody or whatever, it's kind of hard to get this kind of information across. But the police sketch artist is at least trained and is like, oh, this isn't right. Is it the cheekbones? Is it the brow? Is it, you know what I'm saying? They might be asking these kinds of questions. And I'm not sure that if you just tell this AI, no, this looks completely wrong, what's it going to do now? It can't. I don't think it's going to be able to be like, well, what part is it? And not for nothing, being able to suggest, is it the jawline? Is it, because these are, the people that are doing the sketching, the sketching of the sketch artists, they've done this so many times that they kind of know already, like what, like high probability questions are to ask when somebody's like, oh, the face just doesn't look right. The shape of the face isn't right. And they would know, oh, are the cheeks chubbier? Are their face more sucked in? Are their eyes deeper? They would ask these kinds of questions. Do their eyes appear to be set, more deeply in their head? And I'm just not sure this AI is it going to do any of that? I doubt that. I couldn't imagine that it will.
I mean, it would take a text description, or they have that template. So, and you don't know, like, it says eyes, but like, what kind of options do you have for the eyes, right?
Right. Are they too close together? Are they too far apart? Did it appear to you that one eye socket is a little higher in the person's head? Like, there's all kinds of little weird things about our faces.
Or in the from my experience with Stable Diffusion, like, do they have a third eye?
Right.
He likes to add those kind of things sometimes.
That's weird. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. And I think what the person from EFF was saying about how the sketch doesn't look as hyper realistic as these AI models. So then, like, it allows for the idea that there are going to be major differences in what the person actually looks like, because the sketch is just usually a black and white sketch, like a pencil sketch. And in this case, I mean, what if you're like a dead ringer for what the fucking AI puts out there?
Right.
And you're not the person.
Yeah.
Or
I've noticed that again, I've been, should tell our audience. I've been playing around with Stable Diffusion on my laptop. I've got it installed so I can actually run stuff and run my own queries. I can train my own model, but I haven't gotten to that far yet. But one of the things I've noticed is if you don't say any specifics about like if you have a person in your image you're trying to generate, the different models seem to have kind of like an idea of what a person looks like, male or female. Like if you put that in, that changes it a bit. And you can specify the race or locality or something like that. But if you happen to look like the person that the AI model thinks is a generic person, then you've got like a problem. Well, a lot of images out there of you.
Yeah. I can't imagine this being a good thing. I could maybe imagine this being done in conjunction with a sketch artist. Yeah.
I mean, maybe somebody trained to do it might help, but I didn't put this in my notes because they had it in the article, but it wasn't like the way they worded it was kind of weird, but apparently like a good number of the false convictions of people were based on, this kind of forensic research. They didn't say specifically, or they said that the sketch artists, like even with like regular humans, not including AI, like that is included, but that wasn't broken out as a separate metric, right? So they don't really know how many were false convictions were based on a bad police sketch, but you get the impression that like this may not be just in general a good and scientifically sound procedure, right? Like, should we have sketch artists at all?
Right. I suppose it's all going to be in how it's used, and if the people investigating the crime are like aware of the problems with the sketches, right? Because if the people investigating the crime are like, well, this is just very general, and we shouldn't be leaning too hard on this. If we find somebody who looks like this sketch just walking down the street, maybe we should leave them alone because we should probably have other factors that we use to find somebody. You've seen ones where it looked pretty right on, like the Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. The sketch was real good.
Yeah.
It looked like him.
Yeah.
But I think that was because enough people had seen him.
Yeah.
But there are sketches, and I don't remember any off the top of my head, but I've seen a sketch of somebody, and then the person was eventually, caught, and the sketch was just, it looked kind of sort of like them, but like not well enough for you to really use it. And I think one of the main things with this is like the article said, this is like going to be a hyper realistic view of a person. And it's, if somebody sees the first sketch, it's going to nudge them in the direction, I think, because of how realistic it looks like. I don't have any, evidence for this or any, real concrete reason to believe this. I just feel like people are pretty easy to nudge, especially when it comes to our memories.
Yeah.
We do a whole show about the Satanic Panic, where a lot of people's memories were nudged in a lot of unsettling ways. And
right.
Not using a sketch or whatever, but it can't possibly be that dissimilar.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm terrified of this, actually.
Yeah. This is very worrisome. I've seen shows like, I don't know, there was some series I think I saw on Netflix where they just talk about all these convictions that were overturned, usually with DNA evidence, and our whole system of justice has a lot of problems, to say the least. DNA evidence is helping, but still, it's like there's a lot of problems. And I have seen in that show where they showed somebody, they had a police sketch artist tried, work with witnesses and come up with a sketch, and it turned out like that sketch matched somebody else who was vaguely similar looking, but the sketch matched him better than the actual perpetrator, who they found out later, who it was through DNA evidence. And this guy was wrongly convicted and went in jail for like a decade or something because of this this bad evidence. There's other evidence, but the sketch was a big part of it.
Maybe these sketches should be kind of sent the way of the polygraph.
Yeah.
Where, yeah, sure, you can run them. You can be like, oh, this sketch, it looks like you, but it generally, I don't even know, like the polygraphs are inadmissible in court. And I feel like maybe these sketches should go that way, where maybe the investigators can use them as a tool where if they have a bunch of other evidence on somebody to be like, well, we also have this sketch by 3 people.
Right.
And maybe we should work something out here. But, just like they can still ask people to have a polygraph test, but they're usually doing it in the process of, intimidating the accused generally, right? Because they will call it a lie detector test. The cops will lie to you. And I think one of the main problems with this is that this will be they could be like, look, this is a picture of you.
Right.
The computer spit out a picture of you when people described you.
Yeah.
And that's terrifying. If that person is not the perpetrator, what do? They plead guilty, because what else are you going to do if it's a horrific crime or whatever? Your lawyer's job isn't to necessarily save the day or whatever. People watch too much TV. Your lawyer's job is to try to reduce your exposure, even if you're not guilty. At some point the lawyer's going to be like, look, this is ridiculous, but here's how it is. And I just feel like I feel like this is going to cause a lot of people to plead out on things they didn't do. Hopefully this gets stopped in its tracks, right? Hopefully cooler heads prevail.
Yeah, I do want to point out that even though this tool has been created, it's not actually being used anywhere. No actual police department is using it at this moment, and hopefully it will stay that way. And maybe other sketch artists should be removed as well. Like I said, it should all go by way of the polygraph.
Right.
Although that's overused still, even though it's been thoroughly debunked.
Yeah. I mean, they might as well be using the Scientology e-meter.
Yeah, really. It's almost exactly the same, actually.
Yeah, I was actually, for fun, I took a polygraph and I was able to beat it. I was able to lie and have no deception detected because I knew how it worked.
Yeah.
And
I had to take one and I didn't lie because it was for getting security clearance back when I was working at a government contractor in Virginia. That was kind of a horrible experience, and I probably would not have gone through it again when I had to re-up it. But yeah, I've done it.
Wait, they use those? That's such a weird thing that they would use that for security clearance, because those people have to know it doesn't work.
Yeah, and I did get the impression that they didn't believe it that much, if that makes sense, because the guy started asking me questions about stuff that was pretty obvious. He just assumed everybody did. He was asking about downloading files, downloading MP3s or something at the time. It was years ago, right? And at the time I wasn't doing that because I was making enough money that I was just buying my own music. It was fine, whatever.
But it was have you ever?
Huh?
But it was have you ever? It was a have you ever, not are you currently, right?
I think it was both. And so I told him, yeah, I used to, but I don't anymore, kind of thing. He was obviously grasping at straws, trying to find anything that normal people would do, in the regular life that wasn't so legal or something.
Right. I think it was probably used maybe not as an intimidation tool, but as part of a process to assess okay, is this person stupid enough to lie about this?
Yeah.
Which would be, I guess that would be, if you used it as an intimidation tactic, or just if you found somebody, they're like, oh, they really believe this thing. Yeah. Let's hook them up to it. Yeah. And then they'll probably tell us the truth because they think we can tell they're lying.
Right.
But yeah, this isn't a show about polygraphs, but I feel like this particular piece of technology, it stinks like the polygraph to me.
Yep. I agree.
It smells like the polygraph. I mean, I'm just glad Palantir isn't making it, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't seem like any big name company. I don't remember
it would be like
who it was, but it seemed like some small contractor type deal.
if they were trying to get a sketch of the person who came and saved the day, and no matter what happened, it just spit you out a picture of Peter Thiel, then you'd be like, oh, this is a Palantir program. Oh, that was a good story. That was a good story. We should keep an eye on that. That's going to be
I will
interesting.
keep an eye on it if anything comes up, if I am aware of it. This is a different source than I usually get. Is from Vice, not Ars Technica, because Ars Technica didn't have any major stories that jumped out at me, but this did, from Vice's tech section.
Well, I mean, we can set up Google. We can set up like news alerts about this.
Yeah.
Like AI sketching, or I don't know what phrasing you would use. AI sketch would be fine, I guess. AI sketch artist. I'll set a couple up and we'll try to keep an eye on this.
Yep.
Well, I got two. They're going to be fairly quick. One's, I guess, I mean, I don't know if it's funny. Maybe funny is not the right way. One's a little interesting. So they're calling them romance scammers in this article, but they're catfish, right? It says, this is from the Register. I do like the Register because they're willing to, just be kind of snarky and talk a little bit of smack. And they're like, oh, don't trust your super hot military boyfriend you've never met. He doesn't exist. And it's just talking about, it's like a Valentine's Day story about love and romance on the internet. And it's saying that, hey, this stuff may seem, like fun and games, and that, you might laugh at somebody who gets catfished. But a lot of times the people on the other end start asking for money. They'll ask for money for things like a plane ticket, and then they'll never show up. And that might sound like no big deal until they're doing it to 20 people. How much is 20 plane tickets? And so,
well, I mean, how much is one right now? But 20 plane tickets is like, living wage, right?
For a year.
Be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're out there, like no problem. If you want to date and whatever, just keep it local. Like it's best to just keep it local if you can. Like I know you hear some stories about people who met on the internet from a long ways away, but oftentimes when you hear those stories, it's because they shared a common interest. People got married in World of Warcraft or because of World of Warcraft. But that's a little more safe because there was like a community around them where people knew these people in real life who were part of this community. Whereas like, I don't know. I don't even know how you would find, I don't know how these kinds of connections are made because like for me, if I'm like doing online dating or whatever, it's Grindr and it's just geofenced essentially. So I'm not really seeing anybody maybe any more than 10 miles away from me with any regularity.
Mm-hmm.
And sure, people can like spoof their location and stuff, but it's hard and it's easy to kind of spot that because you go, what part of town do you live in? You find out somebody's 8 miles away from where I live in South San Jose. You don't know exactly where they are, and you're not asking for their address. You're asking for like, what neighborhood are you in? Oh, there's a great restaurant there. Have you tried this? You're making conversation, but keep it local. Keep it local. Use apps that are geofenced. Because otherwise you're gonna end up talking to people that you're never gonna meet. And sure, I'm assuming like I don't know even what apps you would use to find people who are out of your area. But sure, some of those people are real. But then what's the point?
Yeah.
Just be careful out there, online dating, and there's other things to be careful of too. But the article was mostly about financial fraud and getting ripped off. Don't ever send anybody money on any of these apps for anything.
True. I do want to point out, like, I think, at least in my impression, like there's a difference between catfishing and the romance scam. Because like, catfishing is, to me, is something that's strictly like online and isn't, or to my impression, it's not often actually like a scam where they're going after money or something. It's just like somebody pretending to be somebody else.
Right. Either to troll or for their, oftentimes maybe to get somebody to send them some pictures of themselves that they might not otherwise send.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just, they have an ego or something, or have some weird thoughts about how this whole thing's going to come out. I don't know if you saw the original like documentary where the term catfish came from. Like there was no like scam in the sense of they're trying to get money or anything out of anybody. It was just somebody who probably didn't like the way they looked and was posting stuff that wasn't like them. Now, romance scam is, on the other hand, to my impression, it's not even like an online thing. So I hate to bring up his name, but Andrew Tate, that's one of the things he was kind of accused of doing. He was using kind of a romance scam to get these women to come live with him and basically do his online thing.
Right. Yeah, that's a whole other level too, because that's like an influencer thing where he was like kind of famous.
Yeah.
And he was having, having them perform on webcam sites sometimes. Like that's a whole other thing. But he was more along the lines of romance scammers. But he wasn't like doing, like, most of the time this is like, send me money for a plane ticket.
Yep.
Or, oh, I'm having a hard time paying my bills, and we've been talking and, I don't really have anybody else to turn to. Like, these stories may sound sad, but don't send anybody money you don't know. Save that money. Set that, if you're like, oh, you know what, I really could afford to help this person. Good. Set that $500 or $800 aside for when your friend down the street falls on hard times, and then help your friend down the street with that money. Because you know that person.
Yeah. Or give it to a legitimate charity.
Right. But yeah, just it's tough out there, and so a lot of people are lonely. I imagine that this is far harder to do to somebody who lives in a big city than it would be to do to somebody who lives maybe, like in a more rural area. Or I imagine like a lot of like older people are falling victim to this because maybe their partner died, or they're divorcee, or they just are what they used to call a spinster. And I imagine that it's a lot of, no, I don't. I just know that it was $1.3 billion, and don't get caught up in that. If you're doing online dating, do it locally. And another piece of advice that has nothing to do with this scam: if you're chatting with somebody and they're not willing to meet up with you within like fucking 10 days, then you're wasting your time. Just go on there with the intent to meet up with someone fairly soon. Always meet at a safe, crowded place. Make sure like a friend knows where you're going. I mean, I don't do any of that stuff. I just go to a crowded place, meet at a coffee shop where there's going to be other people, and just make sure you're, doing it fairly quickly. Cause otherwise, like, this is how these romance scams happen. You've been chatting with this person for 6 months and you don't know who they are or what they are, but you somehow built an attachment to them that's probably fake. And now they're asking you for money and you're sending it to them. So, it's just like shop for a date locally too. Like, it's really, really just uncomplicates things. And don't, I feel sorry for the people who got scammed. So, but the advice is just do this locally and don't do endless chat with anybody. It's dumb. Don't do it. All right. Yeah. I got one more story, and this is just dumb Twitter stuff. There's supposedly a new Twitter API that's on its way, but in the meantime, it looks like they're going to shut down their current API. And so things like if this, then that aren't going to work. There's going to be, I guess the new plan is going to be a limited free system and a $100 a month plan. And that's, coming sometime eventually. And that's great because I use if this, then that. So that I have a Twitter account where if people don't want to follow my personal antics and would like to know whenever a show gets posted, they can do that. If this, then that, it's just one of many things that uses the Twitter API. But if this, then that, I remember when it came out thinking, how cool is this?
Yeah.
And if the other thing is if this, then that, like, relies on subscriptions. And if they don't have any hooks into Twitter, it's going to hurt that company.
Yeah.
And, with all these layoffs going on and whatnot, it's just, that's a very small company, I'm assuming. I don't think there's a lot of people working over there at if this, then that. And so, like, what if that goes away entirely, or, it gets abandoned or whatever? This is just, I don't know why this guy decided to he's like, oh, the API is bad. Like, why?
Because he doesn't know what he's talking about?
That was one of the things that actually worked at Twitter.
Yeah.
I had all kinds of problems with like Patreon and the if this then that. Sometimes even YouTube and Facebook would give me problems, but the Twitter, the only time it would ever become a problem is like your login would eventually expire. So you'd have to go back in and re-log in. And that was the only time I ever had a problem with it. It worked great. It didn't mess up. It didn't fail. Everything worked fine. Developers know how to use the Twitter API. That's probably one of the main reasons, because it was fairly static, where there were upgrades, but not a lot of major changes to it for a very long time. And this is just bad. Like they're getting rid of one of the main things that Twitter is functional for. And it's not just if this then that. What about Hootsuite and all these like social media management apps where you have a person who, instead of having to be logged into all these different tabs to do social media, maybe you work for The Verge to do social media. So you're logged into like Hootsuite or some similar app. Now you have to do Twitter from the web.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. I mean, that's a kind of a cool job, I guess. And I don't feel sorry for those people, but like, why? I don't understand like why they would do this. It just doesn't make any damn sense.
I don't know.
I guess that's our show. I'm just mad because now I have to like log into that account and post to it. I'll have to remember.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say because I don't use Twitter all that much anymore. I can still log into my Twitter account. I don't post anything
for now.
Go ahead. Well, yeah, for now.
They'll probably get rid of the login feature. Last time I tried, anyways.
I don't know if I haven't done it recently, so maybe I can't log in anymore.
Yeah, they just keep. I don't know. This is one of the most valuable things about Twitter was its API, and I don't know. I mean, sure they want to charge. I don't know what the limited free option is, and then $100 a month plan. This just all sounds like you just made it up.
Yeah.
Whatever. I guess I'll read us out this week. If that's okay.
Cool.
Well, that's been How the Tech Are You? It's our tech show. We try to do it every week. We try to put it out by Wednesday. You can find it on whatever podcast app you're listening to it on right now. If you happen to have found it on our website, go onto your phone and find it on your podcast app and subscribe to it if you use such a thing. If you don't use the podcast app, I guess you could still do that, but it doesn't help us out much. Wait, that's not true. Anyway, our website is echoplexmedia.com, and you can watch our live shows at twitch.tv/echoplexmedia. And while you're over at echoplexmedia.com, hit that support tab. See if there's any of the various ways that we try to generate money that works for you. I especially like the swag shop. Have a great tech week.